So your first deal, let's talk about it. What was it?
It was a sub two.
All right, stop. There's a lot of people that are going to watch this that don't know what a subject to deal is, or
Okay.
what some might call, because they created the new fashy term, novations, right? So
Right,
like a lot
right.
of people don't know what that is. So subject to, like, how'd you get into the deal?
So I had a realtor friend, and she reached out to me, and she was like, "Hey, this guy that goes to my church, they have a house and they need to sell it. Like, he's been paying the mortgage on it, but they don't live there. He's been divorced for a while, but it's kind of a mess." And I was like, "This sounds perfect."
Yeah.
Like, I mean, from everything I'm understanding, this is exactly what I need. So I went and met with him, and I was like, "Hey," I mean, it was tight on numbers, and I thought, how can I make this work? And I said, the only way I think that this would work for me is that if I don't have to get, even if it's like private money to borrow this or pay for this, I just, take over your loan. And he was like, okay, that's fine. Like, he just wanted out of it so bad, and it was a mess that he continued to pay. Well, he actually continued to pay the mortgage, and I paid him his payments for the mortgage.
Yeah. And that's really the base of a subject to, right?
Yeah.
Is like, we're going to buy this subject to taking over your existing mortgage.
Yes.
And those terms are set up. And can be a really successful real estate strategy if you find somebody that's what their need is, right?
Exactly.
I've done it countless times. And it's always the same person, like, man, like the house isn't really worth enough to sell to make a profit or pay off the mortgage, but I can't afford to keep making this mortgage payment, or it's putting a real detriment into my monthly expenses. Those are the perfect people. You're like, I'll just take over the mortgage, right?
Right.
And then at the end of this thing, you can either flip it, or you can keep it and pay them off with a balloon payment, or you can, wholesale. I mean, you can wholesale a subject to deal too also, right? So there's all kinds of ways to exit out of it, but it's a creative strategy that allows both sides to win when maybe only one side would have won at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
So you ended up doing that. So what'd you do with that house? Did you flip it?
I flipped it. He didn't wind up getting any extra money. Like, it was pretty much just to pay off his loan because, I mean, I put about $35,000 into it, and
Yeah.
I made. Well, it doesn't sound like. I mean, it was a lot, but it was like 25 that I wound up making on it. But it just turned out really perfect. I mean, it took a few months, but just to get him, like, my first deal's a sub 2, and he agreed to it. It was really cool.
So 25,000 on your first deal.
Yep.
Were you hooked at that point?
Oh my gosh, I was like, what am I doing going to my W-2 job every day?
Yeah.
I love this, but I did continue to work, and I did this kind of more on the side part-time.
Sure. So you guys ended up coming together talking about the divorce, but at what point did you guys decide, like, man, there's some really good synergy here between the two of us?
Well, I think when I was going, her story is a little different with, I think she went into real estate specifically to get out, like find a way to get out of her divorce. Mine wasn't quite that way. I was still scared to pull the trigger just because you don't want to make a wrong decision. But then also, yes, it is a very different income household at that point when it just goes to one person. But of course there was fears in that, and I ended up still pulling the trigger, but it wasn't so much of a financial scarcity mindset of why I was not wanting to do it. So I didn't get into real estate to be able to do that, but I've always loved to make things pretty. Like, I refinished furniture from, drab to fab, and then I, I have Airbnbs that I decorate. I love decorating. So it just kind of fit into, I love to make things pretty, turning something in that needs a lot of work, making it pretty. And we started doing it alongside each other, kind of doing our own thing. We're both direct mailing, marketing separately. And, I finally got my first property direct mail. We ended up getting one that we were driving for dollars, but you're kind of hunting the same house.
Yeah.
And we didn't know it, but she had more contact with them than I had. And then we decided to do that one together. And we lost some money on that deal, but we still made money. And we learned to get out when we did. We're like, I think we need to get out now, which we did. But that was our first one together. And then we just said, hey, she learned about a program, certification about helping seniors and specializing in the senior living aspect. So we joined and forced that. And then we just kind of collaborated or pushed everything together. We're like, why are we doing everything separate? Like, let's just do it all together.
I think she had different strengths than I did. And so, like, when we did that one first deal that she was talking about, that we were both kind of hunting together, it kind of highlighted her strengths and then my strengths. And we're like, wow, we kind of collaborate really well together. And so that's when I reached out to her about the senior living thing. And
so we started building that together.
Yeah.
And so about a year and a half in, I was building that alongside my 12-hour work days as a police officer to kind of build that to be able to feel comfortable to walk away from that job.
Yeah. You know, and I think that when I listen to your story, I certainly understand because I was in police work for, 16 years. And the emotional drain that you have after a shift, um, when you're in a smaller community, it's not always that way,
Right.
but you still have those crazy days and you still have those days where, and I think a lot of people don't understand, like during your shift, the difference between a smaller community and a bigger community sometimes is very unique, right? So where I worked at, I found myself all day long dealing with domestic violences and accidents and like the smaller level things. We still had the big shit happening, but it was like listening to everybody's relationship issues all day long.
It's taxing.
And then when you get off, having to come home and like literally think about business, you're like, man, I'm like emotionally, I'm whipped. And did you find that as a struggle for you when you were trying to do real estate and police work at the same time?
Luckily, with 12-hour shifts that we had every couple days off, which was nice because I didn't have to do it. Now, if I had to do that every day, 12 hours, coming home after doing that, it would have been really more challenging. I still think I would have got it done. But at the same time, when you want something so bad, I just knew I wanted to get out of police work. I knew that I felt like there was something bigger and better for me to do out there and something I would enjoy more. And so I really wanted that. So I knew I had to make some sacrifices in the beginning. And I try to explain that to my kids because they're like, Mom, you're off and you're always still working, but I knew I had to do that to be able to feel comfortable to walk away.
Yeah. So you guys come together. What's the name of your guys' company that you develop?
Real Estate Roots.
Real Estate Roots.
Yep.
So sum it up for everybody. Like, what do you guys do? Like, what is your pitch line? Like, what is your niche? What's so great about it? Don't look each other and try to figure out like who's going to explain it.
We don't want to overtalk. No, we buy houses for cash from people.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are going through challenging times with their home. And they may not know how to get out or they feel stuck. And we're there to help them with those challenges and help them with a solution. And then anything that they could come up with that they may have to figure out next during that time. It's not just like we're there for the house and that's it. Like we literally help them with every step of the process.
Yeah.
If they need it, we have a resource for it.
I talk about it all the time, whether I'm mentoring, whether I'm on another show, or even my guest here, that real estate is a people's game.
It is.
And the individuals that are ultra successful in real estate have figured out that it is a people's game. And there's wholesalers out there that can spend thousands and thousands of dollars sending out mailers and calling people. And then I could knock on a door and get a person to talk to me that would never respond to that or never talk to a wholesaler on the phone. And I've always, like had people ask me like, well, how do you do that? It's because you figure out the relationship piece. You figure out the personal side of things and what they're going through. And it might be on a smaller quantity because you can't do that like in a mass scale all the time. But the deals are better. The relationships are better. The referrals down the road are better. And I think you guys figured that out pretty early on, right? Like that if you have this super cool niche and yours is really the senior community, that you can have some really good success. So like, how did that become your niche, dealing with the senior community? Like, was there something that triggered? Did you see somebody on a podcast? Like, what made you think of like, man, we can really kind of do this wraparound thing with seniors?
I think, the algorithm on Facebook targeted me, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
And I saw some training about learning the senior living industry and how, you can help seniors and make an income doing it, even though we're already doing real estate, but it's how to help them in their real estate and how a lot of seniors are going to need help because they haven't, really prepared for senior living or assisted living or whatever their situation looks like. And so, we're coming up on this time when, we call it like the silver tsunami when they're not prepared and they need help. And so it was kind of a way to get to people and help them in a different aspect than like sending out mail for foreclosures or bankruptcy or inherited properties. It's just a different way to reach people.
Yeah. So when your guys is kind of like do you target your mail campaigns, like your mailers? Did you target that at people over a certain age or with a certain equity in a home, or like how do you target those people?
Certain marketing does have that criteria built in, but a brunt of our senior living is from connections and networking that we've done and built with people in the area, like one-on-one relationships where we've met them, we find out what they can provide for our families or our individuals, and then we use them as a resource to help them through that process because we found majority of people going through that don't know what resources are out there, don't even know a lot of things exist, and they're so stressed they don't know where to start.
Sure.
And so we were able to take that off their plate and say, you're in good hands. We know exactly every person you need. And we had those relationships that we had built for a couple years. I mean, we go to about 4 to 5 networking meetings a month, surrounded with seniors.
So what you're saying is networking works.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, people will refer to you when they know, like, and trust you. And so we've built these relationships. And it also helps people, like, let's say we get a senior on one of our mailers. Well, we have resources for this person to help them now. So
Yeah.
it helps us be able to provide more to people that we're serving.
Here's a big question, and this is kind of one of my secrets in business. And I don't even know if you guys know, but we one of my largest businesses is developmental disabilities and mental health group homes. I don't talk about it a ton, and I'm starting to talk about it a little bit more. But there's one secret that I have in that business when it comes to networking that a lot of people miss. And I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you guys. Let's say you target mailers to seniors, and you have a senior that calls you, and their house ain't going to work. Like, you're like, that doesn't. We're not going to be able to make any money off that. Do you say no, and do you move on?
No.
What's your plan when that happens? When you're like, I'm not going to be able to make any money off this.
We refer them, or we have different areas and avenues that we help them. So if we can't make any money on it, we still provide resources to them, and we still help them in every single way that we can with those resources. And sometimes we're not going to make money on it, so we try to list it, or there's just other ways that we try to help them.
Yeah.
We try to meet them where they're at. What's best for them, not always what
It's best for
I mean,
us.
it's always great to buy a house, but if that's truly not what they feel is best for them, and that's the option they want to go with, because they want to take the time to clean it out, they want to take the time to do repairs, whatever that may look like, we try to support them where they're at, and then we just got to pivot at that point. If they do want to list it, okay, great. I'm a licensed agent. I can list it for you.
Yeah.
Then we have that avenue as well.
So we didn't talk about that like during kind of like our pre-questioning before the podcast, because I wanted that question to be like raw when I asked it to you. And I was hoping that you'd give me that answer, because I think that's one thing that a lot of people miss in business is there's going to be times like when you're targeting a certain niche that you might not be able to make any money off of it. It might not be what you're looking for. But what I found is if you take the time to listen and help people, even when it's not going to benefit you, that at some point it comes back to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right? Like whether it's a referral, whether it's a family member, whether it's just somebody else that they talk to at church or something. Do you guys find that because you take the time to do that and not just turn people away, do you find that comes back around to you in other forms?
Yes. We always feel like it's people. We put people first.
Yeah.
So, like, obviously we're in business to make money, but, we feel like if we do the right thing and the best thing for people, that the money follows. And so we do feel like if we're doing the best thing that we can for somebody, that it does circle back around. And, maybe that circling back around is someone raves about us to a family member that needs help, or they leave us a really great review because we helped them even when we knew that we wouldn't have any money in the deal.